So in the past video, I talked about kind of the founding story of Shintoism and some of the foundational concepts like kami and the focus on purification and a distaste of contamination. In this video, I'm going to talk more about the historical periods of Shintoism and also how it's practiced today in modern Japan. So the Shinto religion can be kind of organized into three different time periods. So you have ancient Shinto, medieval Shinto time period, and the modern period. With the ancient Shinto time period, it was prehistoric. You have clans and tribes, and there's a worship of nature because it's viewed as kami. So kami is deeply embedded and experienced through nature. Medieval Shinto, which is around 538 CE, so this period is after you have the Kojiki and the Nihongi, these religious foundational texts of Shintoism, but at the same time you have Confucianism and Buddhism being introduced by the imperial leaders to the Japanese people. And so you have a submission of the indigenous people, the submission of these clans to these outside ideas of Confucianism and Buddhism. So Confucianism's role, it was embraced, and it provided an ethical framework for behavior along with Buddhism, insofar as it helps people understand suffering and death. Since Shintoism doesn't really have kind of a clear ethical code in terms of what's right or what's wrong objectively, and there isn't a lot of focus on like suffering and death. So this is where these other religions can come into play. And it's really interesting to see this intertwinement and this coexistence of these three religions. What's also interesting is that when Buddhism was introduced, the Buddha was viewed at first as like this foreign god, but then the Buddha became a type of Japanese kami, so became saviors of kami, and so Buddha became kind of interchangeable with the Japanese kami. And also during this time period, it was the time of the samurai, and so the samurai code of conduct came from a combination of Shinto, Buddhist, and Confucian ideals. So you have a focus on purity of the heart and soul, loyalty, and a hatred of pain and death, and that which is viewed as contaminating. In the modern period, though, which is around 1274 CE, you have a backlash to Confucianism and Buddhism, which was it started with the Mongol invasions, and it led to an intense patriotism in Japan. So there was a desire to connect to native beliefs, being Shintoism, over Buddhism and Confucianism. Unfortunately, racist ideas and intense nationalism were flourishing at this time. The Meiji emperor claimed that they were the way of the kami, and so you have this government mandate on households to enroll in the kami shrines instead of the Buddhist temples, which was what was happening before. And so Buddhist priests are no longer performing death rituals, right? It's going to be the Shinto priests doing this, who are connected to the kami. The emperor was viewed as the living kami. So you see this kind of dangerous connection between imperial power and authority and divine authority, because that can be used as a justification for atrocious actions. And so you have Japanese imperial expansion happening during this time where, they're expanding and colonizing China, Korea, Taiwan, and invading Southeast Asia. And that's obviously really dangerous, but it was viewed as a way to connect to Japanese national origins and Shintoism, even though Shintoism itself is not imperialist, right? But it was twisted in a way to justify this imperialism. During this time, you also have new religious sects forming. So sect Shinto, which is kind of a combination of Shinto, Confucian, Buddhist, and Shugendo and folk beliefs. A lot of these new religious groups combine shamanic aspects of Shintoism and Buddhism. There were women leaders. It also appealed to more of the working classes during this time of intense change. There's a focus on clean living and hard work, moral conduct, family, the community. So really kind of connected to old school Shintoism, but it was more contextual for that time period. So how is Shintoism practiced today in modern Japan? Well, Shintoism, like I mentioned in the previous video, it's a belief system, but it's also a way of life. So there's rituals and daily habits that are practiced. It's not really about saying I'm Shinto or I believe in Shintoism. It's more about practicing Shintoism. So in modern day Japan, many individuals may practice Shinto teachings and religion, even if they don't necessarily identify as Shinto believers. In terms of these rituals and daily habits, you have fertility ceremonies that are brought on by dancing by the Miko, which is an unmarried woman. And these unmarried women are shamans and communicate with kami. So they're kind of the segue with the kami. They're the spiritual connection with kami through dance and ritual. Female priests they are kind of allowed to exist in the Shinto religion, but they are usually junior priests because of patriarchy. Patriarchal ideals in Shintoism, some of it is attributed to Confucian patriarchal ideals being infused into Shintoism, but it's also the whole junior priest thing is related to how menstruation is believed to be unclean and contaminated. So you can't practice these purification rituals if you're menstruating because it's viewed as dirty. There's also kind of a 4-step process of purification, presentation, petition, and participation. So this process is performed by Shinto priest for the kami. There is a type of ritual bathing involved, which can be a self-purification that can happen underneath a waterfall or by diving into the ocean. There are Shinto shrines, which are referred to as jinja, which is the dwelling place of the kami. So this is where people go to worship the kami. These are all over Japan. They also have family shrines where you can have a shrine in your own home. So they're obviously miniature shrines, but it enables people to access kami in their own home. And so you also have numerous Shinto and Buddhist observances and rituals throughout the year, with New Year, end of winter, the Ghost Festival, the Harvest Festival, fertility festivals. And so clearly, right, you can see how these ideals are still being practiced today. Fortunately, the emperor cult, right, this idea that the imperial authority is connected to the divine authority, that has been abolished after Japan's defeat in World War II. Today, the new Shinto sects that I mentioned that are a combination of Buddhist, Confucian, and folk beliefs are very popular. And with the popularity of anime and manga, some Shinto shrines have been used to film some, certain scenes take place in these shrines for anime fans. And so anime fans travel to some of these shrines to see them. And also in anime and manga, you see Shinto ideals and concepts kind of embodied. And if anyone's familiar with Marie Kondo, she's also known to have kind of infused Shinto beliefs into her philosophy of having kind of a clean and pure home and throwing out, anti-hoarding and throwing out things that you don't need. So doing things that make you feel happy while at the same time recognizing this purity. So that is how Shintoism is practiced today in contemporary Japan, and how a lot of these rituals and beliefs are still kind of embodied by Shinto believers.